The Capitals end their three-game losing streak as they take down the Metro leading New York Rangers in a shutout. I'll discuss next on this edition of Locked On Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. I would love to talk Capitals hockey with you one-on-one, and we can do that on subtext. Just check the show description for more details. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for more details. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about how the Capitals take down the Rangers, Metro leading New York Rangers in a shutout. Who saw that coming? I'll talk about that in the show. A little bit later, we will talk about, make no mistake about it, Charlie Lindgren is the number one netminder for the Capitals. So at this point, I think that Darcy Kemper is going to have to earn more playing time, I guess, unless it's a back-to-back. But Charlie Lingren is rising to the surface as the number one, and he is help propelling the Capitals forward. And then a little bit later, we will talk about how there is even more rumblings about Ethan Bear coming to the Capitals. But just to get it going here, wow, what an evening for the Capitals. And if you're an everydayer of the show, you know I talk about how I said the game against the Rangers was going to be a true measuring stick to see what this team had in the tank. How is it that they can rise and, take on the biggest opponents and sometimes struggle with the teams that aren't so good? In any event, the Capitals were up for it as they got a shutout over the Metro leading New York Rangers. Wow, what a game, and a big game for Sonny Milano, who, as we know, was scratched in the previous game, came back. What did he do? Scored a goal right away. So there's something to being scratched, and Evgeny Kuznetsov, same thing. He was scratched next game. So there is some proof to sometimes being a healthy scratch will light a fire underneath you. I have a friend over on YouTube that said, would it be worthwhile scratching Ovechkin? I understand where you're coming from there, but I ultimately don't think that's the right idea to scratch your captain. Now, if it's, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 more games from now and he doesn't score a goal, we can talk about that. But I don't think that scratching Alex Ovechkin would set the right chord for the team. But wow, what a game. I can't stop just being excited about the way the team played last night. It was scoring all the way up and down. It wasn't just the bottom six. It wasn't just the marquee names. It was scoring up and down, and the defense was dialed in, as it was apparent, as it was 4-0, a goose egg. So we can give a lot of credit to the defense. And of course, Charlie Lindgren as a team that was all pulling on the collective rope and victorious. Wow, what a win. And hopefully they can ride that going forward. As we know, they take on the Blackhawks a little bit later tonight. But wow, again, so much excitement. And as a Capitals fan, you should feel pretty positive about it. Milano, like I said, gets a goal 43 seconds in. Wow, what a thing out there. I can't believe it. Big second for the Capitals. Mantha's sixth goal of the season. If I was talking to you last summer and said that Mantha is actually going to have a pretty good season for the Capitals, you would have laughed at me. But what is one of the things that I said last summer was, if there's one thing Spencer Carberry could do, or two things other than win a Stanley Cup, is if he could get Anthony Mantha going again. And it does appear as that is the case. Is Anthony Mantha is one of the better players on the team right now. Kuzi, as I talked about, who was also a healthy scratch a couple games ago, getting contributions with 2 points in as many games. So, it does seem like Evgeny Kuznetsov is more engaged. I guess I want to see a little bit more from him, as we know he's a little bit prone to being hot and cold and dipping and diving with production. I would like to see a whole lot more. And Tom Wilson goes on to score and get his ninth, second on the team in goals, only behind Strome 10. So Tom Wilson just proving his worth as a physical deterrent. As you saw, there were some players that wanted to get mixed up. And guess what Tom Wilson did? He goes, you want to fight someone? You want to get involved? You're going to answer to me. I'm the sheriff of this team, and all the fights and all that are going to go through me. And that's one of the things I love about Tom Wilson is, he's scoring a goal one moment and standing up for his fellow teammates the other, and then also showing up to this skating event for kids in DC unannounced. Wow, if that doesn't speak volumes in leadership and what kind of captain he will be on this team at some point, in his spare time, showing up to skate with the kids in DC there and sign autographs, just a real class act. Not only is Tom Wilson a great hockey player, but he is a great human being as well. Nicholas Aube-Kubel making a case that he should stay on the team with his second goal of the season, and I never doubted it. I was kind of surprised that he got sent down to Hershey to start the season. And I know you're going to say, well, Dan, it's only his second goal, but he brings a lot to the game. He also has a bit of a snarl to his game. He's a great playmaker, a great skater. I think the Capitals play great with Aube-Kubel on this team. And there's something that's becoming more and more apparent is that, as we go through this season, and we're about the quarter point of the season, is that this team lacked chemistry between the lines, the D pairings, but you're starting to see some chemistry. And I think that is assuring for the Capitals if they can kind of find lines and D pairings that are consistent. I think that will help the Capitals. There does seem to be a lot more chemistry. Some of that comes from having a grade A goalie in net. I think the Capitals were playing with a swagger and confidence last night. Why? Because they knew that they had a wall in net in the form of Charlie Lindgren, but also that, there was this swagger that was coming from the fact that we're actually scoring goals, guys. We're getting it done. And that's part of the equation. But the other piece of the pie is that they were able to keep the Rangers from scoring any goals. I mean, it would have been a great game if the Rangers scored one goal, but it was a whitewashing 0 that the Rangers, the first place team in the Metro Division, was not able to score a single goal. So I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it was one great evening for the Caps. And just to kind of exemplify what I'm talking about with Nicholas Aube-Kubel, so he had one goal in 4 shots on goal, getting production. They're not all finding the back of the net, but he did get a goal and he did find the back of the net. Alex Ovechkin, if we're going to talk about him for a moment, I am concerned still. He did get 4 shots on goal. He had that one really great shot that bounced off the pad during the power play, but seems to be a bit snake bitten. But it is a bit worrisome there as to, what is the long term? How long is this going to go without him scoring any goals? Ovechkin went without a goal for his 9th straight game and is approaching the longest drought of his career. So what do we do here? I guess I don't know what the answer is. I think that, is there an underlying injury? That's one of the things that I've spoke of. And if you're an everydayer of the show, that is there an injury that we're going to find out about? Or can one player, Alex Ovechkin, who is number 2 all-time in goals, is there the chance that he just doesn't have his touch, that he's unlucky? This guy that has his bread and butter has been scoring goals, has been snake bitten. So for me to just say he's been unlucky doesn't really wash it with me. I do think, just from sizing up the situation, that we will find out here shortly that Ovi is playing with some kind of injury. And instead of, like someone thought could they healthy scratch him? I think that if he gets a lack of production, that they might even have him go on the injured list. There's got to be something underlying with Alex Ovechkin for him to be having such a slow start. Everyone else on the team has been able to figure it out thus far. What is wrong with Ovi? And I don't get me wrong, I understand that he has scored some goals this season. He hasn't gone the whole season without scoring goals, but he is not scoring at the clip that he normally does. And if he wants to catch Gretzky, a lot of people are talking about, most notably RMNB, if they're worried that he's going to be able to get it done under his current contract, that's my next hope for the Capitals. So a great victory over the Rangers last night. Let's really hope that Ovi can score one or two goals because I think with him, much like the same way with Mantha last season, is confidence. Even though he is the great eight and all that comes with that, I think his confidence is a little bit broken right now. If we can restore positivity, really cheer him on, I think great things will happen. If he can start scoring goals on a regular clip, I think that his confidence will come, and I think that maybe that will be the snowball that gets bigger as he continues to score more and more goals. That is my hope for Alex Ovechkin because this team is going to be that much better with Alex Ovechkin scoring goals. All right, so coming up here after the break, we will talk about Charlie Lingren in absolute beast mode. Wow, wow, what a season so far for Charlie Lindgren. Making the case, and there's no case for me, but making the case that he is the number one netminder for the Capitals. I'll talk about that coming up. Patient drive and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your right every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. So go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Charlie Lindgren is just lighting it on fire as he is one of the better goalies in the entire National Hockey League. And he's our number two goalie. Or is he really? I think that's only in title only. And at this point, it's my belief that Darcy Kemper is going to have to prove that he's worth getting another start. I know that he'll get a start in a back-to-back most likely, but other than that, he's going to have to prove that he deserves more net time than Charlie Lindgren. And again, I don't care who's the great goalie. It could be, Darcy Kemper, it could be Charlie Lindgren, it could be any of those players. I just want the best qualified netminder in the between the pipes so the Capitals stand the best chance at winning games. And Lingren is making a compelling case for himself as he got a shutout last night, and he was a brick wall. He didn't allow a lot of rebounds. He was just totally dialed in. His second shutout of the season. At this point, Kemper is going to have to prove that he deserves more time, like I said, to come back. But taking a look at what he did in net last night, you couldn't ask for anything more as he saved 31 of 31. And, not to say, well, it's nothing. That's what Charlie Lindgren does. He did that against a New York Rangers team that has plenty of firepower, and he still found a way to slam that door. Now, you got to kind of spread around the praise as well because it was the defense that was really dialed in as well. But, I'm going to go ahead and say I don't know if the score would have been as good with Darcy Kemper in net. I don't think the Capitals would have lost the game, but potentially not a shutout. So Lindgren is going on a tear here and just proving to everyone around DC and around the organization that I'm that number one goalie that everyone is looking for. And it's an interesting luxury that the Capitals have is that they've always had really great netminders, as far back as I can possibly think, whether it's Holtby or Neuwirth or Varlamov, they've always just had really great options. And, the interesting thing about Charlie Lindgren is is he doesn't have the pedigree necessarily of a Darcy Kemper. Darcy Kemper has, quite a few different things that he can hang his hat on, that he won a Stanley Cup. That's a pretty big feather in his hat to have. So, but Charlie Lindgren is proving it by putting in the work. He's not resting on former glories. He's going out there and showing everyone what he has. And that's a real positive thing for me as a Caps fan, is that this so-called backup goalie is the one is slamming the door, and not doing it against lowly teams, doing it against the first place Metro Division team, New York Rangers, against Peter Laviolette as he makes his return back to Capital One. A great evening for the Capitals. And I think that going forward, that there's going to be more confidence with the players. You can concentrate more on trying to score goals and that type of thing if you know that you have a guy in your net that's going to stop a lion's share of the shots and save the team and stop goals, those kind of things. So I think that a part of the swagger that I talked about in the first segment is they're like, we got Charlie back there. We're okay. Guys, let's get to work and score goals. And that is exactly what they did. So I don't think that, there's a player favorite, but you have to think maybe in that subconsciously that the Capitals players are kind of saying, I hope that it's Charlie Lindgren in net tonight. And I don't, mean to disparage Darcy Kemper. It just seems that, analytically speaking, that Charlie Lindgren this season in particular is the better netminder, gives the Caps the best chance at winning. Great at tracking the puck, great at moving in the crease and the paint there, and also great high danger shots. He's good at long range shots. He's good at shots from the net front. He is the complete package. And he is the backup netminder for the Capitals. So just a real great luxury that the Capitals have. It's as I record this at 9:48 a.m. local. I got to think that it's going to be Darcy Kemper in net tonight against the Blackhawks. But if you ask me, I would keep riding the hot hand. I would go with Charlie Lindgren. Why wouldn't you? I mean, I think there's a lot of crazy ideas. If it's a back-to-back, you have to split it up. And I know that the common thought process nowadays in the NHL is you want to split up the workload. But for me right now, I'm going to roll with the hot hand. If I was the head coach of the team right now, I would say that I want Charlie Lindgren in the net tonight, is it's going to give the Capitals the best chance at winning. I don't think that's going to be the case, but that's just my take on it. But a real vote of confidence by Spencer Carberry by putting him in against a bigger opponent, against the New York Rangers. As we know, the Chicago Blackhawks have not been as good this year. They're one of the worst. So a real vote of confidence for Carbs on Charlie Lindgren, kind of telling on which way the team is going there. But again, I'm really happy for him. And as Capitals fans, you should be happy that the Capitals have such a luxury in net. All right, so coming up here after the break, the rumblings continue about Ethan Bear. Would he be a good fit on the Capitals? Where would he fit? Who comes out? Who goes in? Those types of things. I'll talk about that coming up. A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Tom Wilson could score 50 goals. The Capitals could hoist the Stanley Cup, and you could win big by playing Daily Fantasy Hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily sports fantasy hockey, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. And let me tell you something, guys. I was not a guy that was that big into fantasy hockey, but once I discovered Sleeper, I love it. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Capitals fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's Locked On NHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Capitals are looking to address different positions on the team. We know that Brian McClellan said to start the season that he wants to address the top 6 forwards, that they need some more scoring. We do know that Max Pacioretty is edging back towards his return as he was practicing with the team in a non-contact jersey. But looking at the video footage, I got to say that his shot looks pretty sweet. I think the Capitals will like Max Pacioretty. I guess it'll, remain to be seen how that translates into a real game time situation. But watching him skate around at practice at MedStar was promising. But I still think they need to address and pick up another top six forward if it's possible, right? But in this particular segment here, we're going to talk about Ethan Bear, who is a blue liner, but the Capitals could use a little bit of help. I know that a lot of the positions are spoken for on the blue line, but one position of need on the blue line was on the right side. So Ethan Bear does seem to be a good option for the Capitals. But it's not really big news to hear the Caps are interested in Ethan Bear. They showed interest him to start the last season. Some big names in the NHL media have mentioned that Bear could be a good fit for the Capitals. Elliot Friedman, as we know, the 32 Thoughts podcast co-host, is one of those, the premier insider. He says it looks as if Ethan Bear is getting close to resuming his NHL career, or at least picking a team that he's going to do it with. There's a number of other clubs that suspect that the Washington Capitals have really made a strong bid for Ethan Bear. Nothing official at this time, but it is believed the Caps have made a legitimate run at him. I did think that in the process began with Vancouver and the advantage, but there's just other teams out there that can do what Vancouver can't, cap and salary cap wise. We'll see how that unfolds over the next few days. So I would expect a deal to get done with Ethan Bear as there's more insiders. I heard the same thing from Chris Johnston. So these premier insiders, usually when you start to hear it from multiple sources, you know that there's a little bit more traction there. We do know that Bear did not get a qualifying offer from the Canucks. Last season, Bear played 61 games for the Canucks last season and had 3 goals and 13 assists for the Canucks in 61 games. He does help on the right side. He does have a pretty good defensive capability, so I think it would help out the Capitals in their pursuit at trying to solidify the blue line. So the question is now, ultimately, is who going to come out of the lineup to accommodate a roster move such as this? We do know that the Capitals have Alex Alexiev and Lucas Johansson on the team, primarily always the healthy scratches. The difficult part, however, is that both of those players would have to clear waivers. And if you're asking me, I think the possibility of Alexiev and Johansson, both of those players clearing waivers, is small. I think that someone would probably snipe one of those players, scoop them up, and we would be short either Alex Alexiev and Lucas Johansson. And Alex Alexiev, we had such high hopes. We had him circled on the team before Joel Edmondson came to this team. And Lucas Johansson, as we know, has been just this great prospect, this great possibility for the Capitals. I would be rather upset if Alexia or Lucas Johansson got scooped up by another team, but that is all a part of the risk of getting involved in these types of maneuvers. Is Ethan Bear worth it to expose Alexiev or Lucas Johansson? I think that there's some raw potential there, but sometimes we know that doesn't always materialize. It does seem like he's a good fit, and I know that he plays good on the right side, and I know that Chris Johnston and I know that Elliot Friedman think that it's a match made in heaven, but ultimately, is it worth it to lose Alexiev or Lucas Johansson, or worst case scenario, both of them? It's a difficult question that Brian McClellan and the Capitals will try to have to answer. Ultimately, it would be nice if they could work something out that didn't have to happen. But we do know that there's going to have to be some kind of roster juggling on the blue line in order to accommodate that. It's an interesting thing. I think the blue line is pretty well set. I know that the Capitals have struggled by allowing in a lot of goals. So, it stands to reason, and common logic would be that they could probably use a boost in the blue line. I get that, but is Ethan Bear the guy that's going to help the Caps blue line, considering that last night the Capitals blanked the New York Rangers? It's a gamble at the end of the day. I think that, the metrics on him I've looked at are pretty good, but I'm not so sure that it's worth the gamble of exposing Alexiev and Lucas Johansson to the waiver wire. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On podcast, your team every day. And when you're done here, make sure and head on over to Locked On's national streaming channel. Go to Locked On Sports today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Do it today. And again, guys, thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. So thanks all of you that listen and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. So once again, thank you for joining me on this Sunday edition of Locked On Capitals, and I'll talk to you again next time.